All right, we're going to take a look at the 2018 Ariens Deluxe EFI. We're going to look inside the transmission. We're going to look inside the belt compartment. We'll talk about cable adjustments. And then we're also going to spend a little time talking about the electronic fuel injection. We'll take a look at the components of it and why it's so easy to use. The easiest way to work on these is to put it in the service position. Basically what that means is just grab a hold of the handles and tip it up on its nose. If I'm out in the garage, I like to put it on a piece of cardboard so I don't scratch the front, or on a piece of plywood like you see here. That way it also kind of makes it a little bit stickier, so I can raise it up by myself. I don't have to worry about it sliding when I put it up in this position. So when they say in the manual put it in the service position, that's all they mean here is just tip it up on its nose. Well, that didn't work, did it? Okay. For me, the easiest thing to do is to pull the wheels off, then pull the transmission cover off when I want to look inside the bottom of it. And the wheels actually come off pretty easily. This clip right here, you just pull up on the front part of that clip and it slides off. And of course, like me, you drop it on the floor. Grab a hold of the wheel and start sliding it forward. If you'll notice, there's a little keyway here. I like to turn that so it's upright, and I'll stop the video and show you why that's important. Okay, when you take the wheel off and you put your keyway in the upright position, when you start pulling it off, you'll see that there is a key here on the shaft. A key means it's just a 1/4 inch square, kind of 1/4 inch square piece of bar stock, and that keeps the wheel locked onto the axle and makes everything turn. If you don't pay attention to that, this will easily fall out, and you can drop it and lose it. When you go put things back together again, you don't quite understand why it doesn't work. So making sure you grab that key when you take your wheel off and set that off to the side. Remember to put it back in when you put things back together again. The transmission cases or transmission housings on snowblowers are not sealed up. They're basically just a metal box with a plate on the bottom of them. Ariens uses 6 bolts, 6 3/8 inch screws to hold them on, 2 on the top and 2 along each side. They have captive nuts on them, so all you have to do is put the bolts in, and then the tops are threaded here. When you go and take it apart the first time, you're going to see some stuff in the bottom. You're going to see some rubber and some grease and maybe some dirt. You might even find some snow and ice depending on how cold it is. So that's normal. If you pull a transmission apart on any of these snowblowers, that's what the inside of the case is going to look like. Don't worry about it. You don't have to clean it if you don't want to. If you find pieces and parts like nuts, bolts, washers, big rubber chunks, then it kind of pays attention, then kind of makes sense for you to see if those parts were accidentally left inside the case when the thing was put together, or if something is broken. I haven't found an Ariens yet with any extra parts in it, but I did find another brand last year that had extra nuts, bolts, and washers laying in the bottom of that case. So if you hear some rattling, it may not actually be there, need to be there. All right, let's take a quick look at all the different components, and I'll go into the individual ones here as we go along. The inside of a snowblower transmission is pretty simple. The solid axle machines have a solid axle running through them and a gear. The Ariens auto turn have a axle running through them, and then the auto turn unit here. Some of the other brands that use trigger power steering will have more components in here. They'll either use clutches or something else to release one axle or the other when you pull the trigger. What happens is when you go to use this machine, you start the engine. On an Ariens, this pulley spins up, and at full speed, it spins probably about 1,000 RPM. When you pull on the clutch engagement or the traction control engage lever up there on your handle, this plate moves up and touches this wheel here. This wheel is a rubber friction wheel. That's why they call them friction drive transmissions. And depending on where this wheel is at on this big pulley is how fast you're going to go. If it goes over past the center, then it's going to go in reverse for you. So your different gears are just different slots, different positions on this wheel. It's a real simple solution system. It's been around for a long time. And over the years, some of the manufacturers have had problems with this wheel getting the right rubber consistency. Nowadays, they really don't go bad. You might wear one out after 10 years or so, maybe longer, but other than that, these systems all work really well. This piece right here, there's a fork that fits into it with a set of roller bearings, and that fork moves that back and forth. This bar up here on the top goes to a lever outside of the transmission case, which goes up to the controls, the forward reverse control on the dash. All right, so the V-belt drives this pulley here. This pulley, the friction wheel rides on the edge side of this friction pulley, and then the power comes through this shaft onto this small chain, goes into this gear reducer, and then into the auto turn itself. The auto turn then drives the two axles, the left and right axle. There have been no issues at all with the auto turn. Any problems that you've heard with the auto turn are not because of this component here, the steering component, but because of balance or people not adjusting their snowblower correctly. The 2018 versions, in fact, I really can't get these not to work exactly the way they're supposed to. This particular machine, I don't have the skid shoes adjusted right on it, and it still tracks straight going down the pavement. So I am. If anybody's telling you that auto turns are junk, have them watch this video, and they can leave a comment and we can discuss it here in the comment section, because there really is no problem with it. It's a simple system, and it just plain works. So, all right. Anything else? A couple other things I want to tell you about. These, like I said before, these cases are not sealed, so you're going to get moisture into them. Is the moisture going to affect them? No, not at all. This actually sits vertically in the machine when it's running, so any moisture or snow that gets onto this gets spun off right away, It doesn't make this drive wheel slippery. Plus the composition of this rubber tire and this pulley here always have traction even if there's water running on it. So you are going to see over the years, you're going to see some coloration, and I call it patina. After the first couple years, these shafts here are going to turn brown and they're going to look like rust, but over time that's just going to turn into a nice brown finish. This spot back here needs a little bit of grease every year or so because it slides back and forth on that shaft. Also, there is a grease zerk on the outside of the transmission case for this bearing in here. And then once a year or so, you want to put a little grease on the auto turn gear. Other than that, that's all the lubrication you need. These things are designed to last 15, 20 years or longer. And I know a lot of them that don't actually even get any grease in them and they still work just fine. So, and I think that's it for the transmission. I'm going to go down and we're going to look at these other pulleys here. All right, this is that flat pulley that the friction disc goes onto. This pulley down below here, that's for the auger that drives the auger and impeller system. This bar here is a brake, so that when you release the impeller, a brake pad actually matches up with this pulley here, and the whole thing stops within 5 seconds. There's not a whole lot more to tell you about that down here. This runs probably about 1100 RPM or so at full throttle. It's got a standard depth pulleys on it, and those pulleys are deep enough so that the belts stay on when you release the tension to stop the machine. This pulley up here, if you'll notice, that looks, if you're familiar at all with pulley systems, this pulley is deeper, and the reason for that is when you pull on your clutch, this plate moves. It moves up and contacts this here. Can you see that working? When I engage it, it tightens up and everything runs tight on here. Ariens designed this pulley so that the belt will never fly off of it. This belt is at a constant tension, so you don't ever have to worry about this belt popping off. If the machine doesn't want to go into a snowplow, into a snow pile, if the machine does not want to go into a snowdrift or a snowplow pile or anything like that, the wheels stop. The reason is not because this belt is not tight enough. The reason is because this plate here is not tight enough. And I'll show you the adjustment on that. It's a real simple adjustment you do on the outside of the machine to make that work correctly. These are pretty simple, pretty easy to operate. Inside there's not much to them, which makes them, good rugged machines. They last a long time because of that. I want to spend just a few seconds here talking about the auto turn, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I just want to go through to make sure you understand and you're confident that you're buying a quality piece of merchandise here. The auto turn is extremely simple. It uses about, 50 to 100 parts less than the typical trigger control system. And as far as looking at it, all it is just this gear case right here. That's all it is. When the machine wants to go forward, it pulls both wheels forward. When you want to turn, it automatically releases one side, just like an auto locking differential in your car. Same basic principle. If you go straight, both wheels turn at the same time. If you you can zero turn with this, you can pivot on one wheel, any way you want to do with it. It's just it's an automatic system. You never have to think about it. The original ones that they had a few years ago, they did make a little clicking noise, and that's just the way they were designed. There was nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing that'll wear out. These new ones still make a small clicking noise, but they're quieter, as you can see. So that's the least likely component on a snowblower that will wear out. This is a good enough unit that Ariens was the first one to use it, but other brands are also now using this too. And you'll see them call this automatic steering instead of auto turn or power steering. So that's all I have to say, but I just wanted to make that clear. That's all I wanted to say on the auto turn, is to make you feel confident that you've bought the right machine. I do want to mention that this snowblower that we're looking at today, Ariens is letting me borrow this to use this winter. Ariens has been doing this for the last few years. They let me borrow a snowblower in the spring, give it back to them. This year I have this 30 Deluxe EFI, and I also have the new Rapid Track. Other manufacturers also do this. I buy a few of my own to test, but I just want to make perfectly clear that anything that I say here, no one pays me to make these comments. And if I like something, I'm going to tell you about it. If I don't like something, I'm also going to tell you about it. So, just wanted to make that clear. One thing I do like about the Ariens machines is that on the Deluxe, Platinum, and Professional models, commercial models, they all use a lot of the same components. They all use similar components. For example, this cable here is a sheathed cable. It's very flexible. It's got molded ends on it. It's real tough and durable. They have plastic guide rollers here, and these guide rollers, they don't go bad. They also have little covers so nothing pops out, so that even if everything gets really loose, it all stays in place. Ariens machines are very simple to adjust. If you go and push into a snow drift or snowplow pile and your wheels stop, all you have to do is make a simple adjustment here to this spring to make everything work correctly again. You don't have to pull any covers off, or you don't have to do any measurements. Basically what it is if you put tension on this and it's loose like this, it needs to be adjusted. So all you have to do is loosen this nut and then unscrew this, screw this bolt tighter to make it tighter, or screw it down to make it looser. So that when you're done, you want to be able to pull on the handle and you want to watch the spring expand just a little bit. I'd say the total give on this one, set up properly, probably at this point here, is about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. Same way over with the tension for the auger belts, they're adjusted the same way. So if your impeller is not running or snow is just dribbling out of it, this is one of the things to check to make for sure that this spring is expanding when you pull down on the lever. With the friction drives, sometimes they wear, most of the time they don't. But sometimes they'll wear and you can adjust and the neutral will be off. So when it's set in neutral and you go to put the clutch handle down, the thing will still move a little bit. You make that adjustment here. You pull this clip off and then you adjust this up and down to set your neutral. Some other machines, some other brands, you can also set your high and low speeds on them, your fast reverse or your fast forward. It's kind of a trade-off. This right here is the oil drain for the engine. We'll talk about that later on. That's really about all there is for adjusting them from the outside. I will show you the belts here in a little bit to give you an idea what they look like. The electronic fuel injection system on the Ariens is pretty simple from an operator standpoint. All you have to do is turn the key and pull the starter rope or use the electric starter and it starts. You adjust your throttle with like a volume control knob up on top. That's all there is to it. The only maintenance that you have to do is about every 3 months or so charge the battery for the EFI. And if you use your snowblower a lot, don't even worry about that, because the alternator system on the Ariens will charge that battery if the engine is running at half speed or faster. Let's talk about the components just a little bit. Up there on the dash, of course, there's the key and the throttle knob. The carburetor itself, or EFI unit, if you look at it from the back end, let's see if we can get this to adjust. Come on. There we go. All right. It's just a sealed printed circuit board. That's all you need to worry about. There's no adjustments on the carb at all. You can't do anything there. There's no fuel spigot or anything like that to drain fuel out of the carb, because there's actually not a carb there. It's just a jet. It does have a pressurized fuel system, so you don't have to worry about oxidation getting into it or anything along those lines. Now let's go back up and see if I can do this easily. In addition to what you saw there in the, can I get this? This is fun. In addition to that little printed circuit board, there's also a small box up on top underneath the dash with a couple plugs. And so again, don't worry about that. But there is one plug that you need to be aware of, and it's this white plug right here in the middle of the screen. This plug right here plugs into the battery. Once every 3 months or so, you will need to, they recommend in the manual that you charge it. It's just a little trickle charger. You unclick this here and then click that into this battery connector. These look like standard Tamiya radio control connectors, so I do like the fact that they didn't reinvent the wheel here. There's no special battery, which means it should be fairly inexpensive if it ever goes bad. But I expect you to get well over 10 years life out of this battery before you even have to worry about it. The battery is just a little 6-cell, looks like a 6-cell lithium battery that's under a metal cover tucked back up in the dash here. So they tried to keep things as simple as possible and not reinvent the wheel, which is really nice. That's it for the EFI. I could show you the dash if you want it, but you can easily see that. Just turn the key, turn the knob, and off you go. Okay, let's play a game. Game is, this machine has been tipped up on its nose for 2 weeks. Just been too busy doing other things to finish these videos. So let's see how good this electronic fuel system actually is. Let's see, let me align this just a little bit. Okay, so was no fuel in the carb. It was tipped up on its nose. Typically, if you do that and leave them set for quite a while, a regular carbureted machine won't start for 10-15 minutes at least. So let's see what happens. I should be able to turn the key on, should hear a little beep, then I should be able to fire it. And I'm going to put this on about medium throttle to start with. Okay, it did what it's supposed to do. Let's see if it starts. No joke. That's how good this EFI system is. I'm happy. I hope everybody gets EFI pretty quick, because this is the way to do business with snowblowers. All right, well, I have found one thing on this snowblower that I don't like, and it's the clips that hold the bolts to the bottom transmission case. They're little clip nuts, and when you put them on for the first time, they must warp, because I've just had a nightmare of a time trying to put them back on. I recommend that if you have to get inside your transmission case, that you see if you can get a set of those captive nuts from your local Ariens dealer, just in case, because I had a heck of a time putting them back in. They look so simple, but they're not. That's the only negative that I've come across here going through the machine, looking at the inside. So one final piece that we want to look at is the pulley area. There's 3 belts in this pulley area. The front 2, or the ones to your right, drive the impeller and auger assembly, and the one to your left, or the back one closest to the engine, drives the transmission. The one that drives the transmission is a constant tension belt, so there's no slippage to it. If there is slippage to it, I'm going to run this through here, and you see the little spring. Let's get my finger there. See a little spring right there? That spring may have fallen off. That would be the only reason why that back belt does not have the proper tension on it. So take a look. If that belt looks really loose, take a look at that spring, make sure that spring is on. You actually engage your transmission on these by moving that bottom pulley. And that bottom pulley goes ahead like that. See how it moves? Pretty simple. And let's tilt it more a little bit. Let's see. This is going to be hard to see. Let's try that. See it moving down there? That's all the movement there is to it. That pulley has a deep groove in it, but that deep groove is just to make for sure that when the pulley is not connected to the transmission, in other words, the thing's not going forward, that the belt doesn't pop out. That has nothing to do with the drive control on it. Remember, like I said before, if this machine, if the wheels stop on it when you go into a snow drift or something like that, you adjust the spring tension back behind the handles on the controls there. It's a real simple adjustment. I do want, and then let's talk about this quickly. That pulley there does move and tightens the belts up to engage the auger and impeller. When you release that, that releases the tension on that, and then there's a a brake pad inside the transmission case that stops everything, and it's supposed to stop it within 5 seconds. Excuse me. It's probably pretty loud with this new microphone I got. Anyway, couple things to remember. If you're buying a snowblower not from a dealer or not from Home Depot, particularly if you're buying from one of these online companies, it may arrive to your door in a crate or a box, and you'll have to do some assembly to it. Some of the assembly that the dealer normally does is not listed in your owner's manual, and one of them is to adjust the cable tension. And I'm going to zoom back out here again and talk about that a little bit. And you're going to have to adjust the cable tension on these here, most likely when you get it out of the box. You're also going to have to adjust the skid shoes, and you want about 1/4 inch underneath your front skid bar shear plate if you want that shear plate to last. If you want it perfectly clean each time, well, then you can drop it right down. I'm trying to think if there's anything else there. Make for sure you put your if you get it in a crate, make for sure that you get the chute control assembled correctly, and so that it works nice and free. It's made to do that. Check your oil. It should come with oil in it, but if you see any oil stains in that crate or in that box, make sure you check your oil. The cover for the pulley area that we were just talking about is real simple. There's just 2 bolts. One bolt is captive right here on the frame, and the other is a captive bolt that's on the plastic cover. So you won't lose any bolts taking this cover on and off. Other than that, everything is guarded good. Again, that's all open to the weather inside. It will, if you take this apart after you just got through blowing snow, that area will be wet in there. Over years, you're going to see a little brown patina on some of that stuff, but it won't rust and rot out like some people think it's going to do. They just don't do that. The metal is all good, solid, long-lasting steel. I can't think of anything else to talk about when it comes to the inside of the machine. This is plenty. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to talk about it in the comments below. I check those comments every day or so.